Hey, good evening and welcome to the Alternative Football News Network. This is the coach and you're listening to the Indoor Football Experience with the Coach and the Kid. RJ, what's going on? How you doing?
I'm doing well tonight, Coach. How about you?
Oh, really good, man. An intro just gets me pumped up. We got a lot of things to talk about and another fast-paced show. Good weekend in the world of indoor football.
Definitely, things are really starting to heat up in the industry. If leagues are not already in the playoffs, the race is tightening up very heavily.
No question. So again, if you're just joining us, you can listen to the indoor football experience with the coach and the kid on the Alternative News Network at afnn.net. And I'm sure we'll be throwing up a Facebook Live or something here soon enough. So I'm the coach. That's the kid. We're going to go around the horn. Like we said, a good weekend of indoor football action to talk about, and the IFL didn't disappoint this weekend, so we might as well not even hesitate and get right into it as the Nebraska Danger Man went on the road and came out with a close one, but they did pulled off a big road playoff win in a great football game.
Absolutely. The Danger really were explosive in that first half. They put up they put up 33 points in the first half alone. And the they only got outscored in the third quarter. And that, no, pardon me, in the second and third quarter, and that was only by a total of 4 points. So, the problem with, I think, the Blizzard is that the quarters where they didn't score a lot, it was only one score where they would score. So you had first quarter they put up 7, second quarter they put up 23, and that's when the majority of the points came from. If you take away that fluke quarter, they only put up, you know, a good 17 points.
Yeah, it was a very interesting football game. And one thing I will say, the Danger, they came out right, excuse me, they came out right away with Armstrong and just set the tempo that they were willing to win the football game any way that was needed. So definitely got things going on the ground. We're able to get the passing game going a little bit. And then again, at the end of the day, the ground game was their bread and butter. The thing that was disappointing for Green Bay is the Green Bay defense is. I found them to play a little bit better, and I found I had them in a little bit higher regard than a lot of other people did. I like the defense. I feel like they have some good playmakers on there, and the secondary is outstanding. The Green Bay Blizzard secondary with Powell and Gallman and the likes of the others in that defensive backfield core. But the real area that stuck out to me was the lack of any playmaking wide receivers for Green Bay, and that really hurt them at the end of the day, in my opinion.
Definitely, it's always hard to lose a home playoff game because, there's always the easy excuse when we're on the road that, well, the crowd wasn't fit for us. It was interrupting our play signals. You can't say that. Not that I see people in the IFL saying that, but I'm saying, like, for the fans to say that kind of thing. Because let's face it, fans, no matter what level you're on, I don't care if you're at your kid's Pop Warner game or watching NFL, the fans will find some kind of wiggle room for a way to say it's not 100% the team's fault.
Oh, no question. And at the end of the day, like I said, they won the net yards, the passing game, if that's what you want to look at. But they didn't make any plays in the passing game. They just completed passes. And even the Danger, they were able to, even though they were a heavy run team the other night, they were able to complete some big passes. I remember big passes being completed to Tatum and several others throughout the course of the night. And again they finished with over 100 net yards rushing, which again was the balance of their offense. It's interesting that they had 23 rushes for 104 net yards, and the Blizzard had 22 for 78. So again, the big plays were made in the rushing game by the Danger, and the big plays were made in the passing game by the Danger. And again, I feel like that's a big difference because statistically, so many things were close.
Definitely. I mean, a one-score game in the playoffs is great because what you don't want to have happen is either A, get a sloppy game, or B, get a game where it's a blowout. I mean, if you remember that Bronco-Panthers Super Bowl a few years back, it was over as soon as it started.
Yeah,
Pardon me, Bronco-Seahawk. Bronco-Panthers was good.
right. Well, that brings me to my point and just talk about leadership of both the teams at the quarterback position. And Tommy Armstrong, has a little bit more experience for the Dangers, but Lenoris Footman proved to be, one of the better quarterbacks in this league. And, he held serve for himself as far as being a developing quarterback in the IFL, 17 for 27 for 159 yards and one touchdown, was able to protect the football with no interceptions, and then 12 rushing attempts for 42 yards for two touchdowns. So again, a big season for the Green Bay Blizzard and Lenoris Footman, and the future's really bright there. I think for him, they can put some playmaking receivers around him. They'll be good to go.
Yeah, definitely. I do see a lot of upside for this Green Bay team, and definitely if they can keep Footman at quarterback for next season, it's always a big thing retaining quarterbacks. If you can keep Footman, who, by the way, has the most ironic name for a quarterback in a while. If they can keep Footman there, I think, and retain most of that roster, they're a scary team. They were really, really hitting their stride during the stretch for the postseason.
Yeah, I think they're real close, and again, we'll see if they can keep this roster together. A good portion of it, like I mentioned, I like a lot of the pieces on the defense, and they have some good pieces offensively. Again, I think just a big need for them is a couple playmaking on wide receivers, and probably add a little bit of depth on the defense, and they'll be right there again next year's. Their best players defensively stepped up, and that's what they were looking for. The Danger just were the they wanted it from the onset. They got the big kickoff return right out the gates. I think they had the ball on about the 10, maybe inside the 10, if not the 5-yard line. It took a couple downs before they were able to punch it in with Armstrong's first touchdown of the game. And that really set the tone for them, as you knew it was going to be a shootout. You were going to have to put something on the board every time you got possessed the football and not turn it over. And I mean, really, that's what it came down to. A couple times Green Bay wasn't able to put points on the board when the Danger did, and now you're chasing.
Definitely, and indoor football is a very hard game to chase from because it's an offense-oriented game, no matter the league you look at. And, no matter how good your defense is, they're going to allow something. The big question is it going to be a touchdown or is it going to be a field goal? Because the pure stops, like letting them score no points, are super hard to come by.
No question. And then just a couple days later, the Tucson Sugar Skulls traveled to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, to take on the Storm, and really it was more like the Storm squeaked away with a 50-47 win. Tucson did everything they possibly could to win the game and hang with a perennial top team in this league and a perennial champion. And they fell just a little short, but heck of a game by the Sugar Skulls, who basically came out and set the tone early and set the pace for this game, and had the Storm on their heels for most of the game, where The Storm had to make plays and rely on, a veteran football team that they suited up, which wasn't exactly the same team that they've been suiting up in the last few weeks.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the stats right now, Coach, and the one thing I see a big difference in is the kicking game. Parker Douglas for the Storm went 1 for 2 in field goals, but 5 for 7 the point after, putting up a total of 8 points. Josh Gable went 4 for 5 in the extra point department, but went 0 for 2 in the field goal department. If he makes one of those field goals, you go to overtime. If he makes both of them, they win.
Yeah, it was a rough weekend for the kickers in the IFL. If you really want to talk the kicking game overall, throughout this first round of the playoffs, it was tough. Friday night in Green Bay, and it was also very tough for the Storm. But you make a great point, and again, the third phase can't be ignored even in the indoor game. Although so many people do want to ignore it, the kicking game, and then making sure you don't turn the football over in the kicking game. And again, the third phase, and you have to always win that phase too. And you know what? At the end of the day, those 2 missed kicks basically mean that you didn't win that phase, and that's why you lose that close football game.
Yeah, and I think people have to realize how hard kicking is in these leagues because the goalposts are so skinny. I literally heard the Chicago Bears of the NFL, due to their kicking issues in the off season, can you say double doink? They brought in arena goalposts to practice with because they're that much smaller and they improve accuracy, in that way. And I think, first of all, smart move by the Bears on that front. Second of all, it gives you more appreciation for these kickers in these indoor leagues.
My thing is, hey, you should be able to make the regular routine extra point. That doesn't change with the narrowing of the goalposts.
Oh, I agree on that.
And we saw so many of those missed or blocked, and really during the course of the year, sometimes if you watch a lot of indoor arena, that's almost a snap that the players take off.
I
But
was going to
it's the
say,
playoffs,
you see a lot
so
of standing around the line.
Yeah, so they actually played it serious this weekend, and everybody wasn't ready or wasn't up to speed, so to speak. So just real interesting how when the playoffs come around, it becomes an important down that you see played at a little higher intensity, and like we both agreed, it's usually a down off. But one thing that I thought hurt the Storm was they played some new guys, some veterans that they brought in to play in the secondary over some guys that have been playing and actually really having good seasons. And I thought most of their issues that they were having and the Sugar Skulls were taking advantage of were in the defensive secondary, and they were able to finally kind of hang on. Like I said, a lot of vets out there for the Storm, and I think at the end of the day, that really helped them out. And it's really hard to beat a team like the Storm too when you're using 2 different quarterbacks, no matter how good either one of them's really playing.
Yeah, and another difference that was in this game is the sacks. Tucson wasn't able to sack Lorenzo Brown a single time, but Sioux Falls was able to get to Jake Medlock twice. And, as much as the sack is a loss of yardage, it's also a mental thing as well, because the quarterback can start thinking, all right, how much quicker do I got to get the ball out of my hands now, knowing that there's a precedent of me getting sacked?
Yeah, it's really weird. The Sugar Skulls, they got a big win out of Matt Barrett really the week before, who carried the load. And then the following week, it's Jake Medlock. And, it's just a really weird deal there. So, the old sayings, some people say if you have 2 quarterbacks, that's just as good as having no quarterbacks. So, I don't really know really what's going on there. Medlock put up great numbers with 22 for 25 for 273 yards indoors and 6 touchdowns and no INTs. So again, they just weren't able to. Hang stride for stride, and the kicking game proved to be very important again. You mentioned Lorenzo Brown, and it's just funny how these veteran quarterbacks really what they can do on the ground really became key points for a couple of teams. Specifically speaking of the danger and Sioux Falls with Lorenzo Brown. Again, he had 52 yards for 4 touchdowns on the ground, one passing to account for 5 touchdowns. And anytime you can account individually for 5 touchdowns in a game or more, you should win that football game.
Oh, definitely.
So it set up for some nice matchups, and I also like the running of Kalen Campbell for the Storm as well. A local product from Lindenwood University. Been watching him all year, but 10 rushes for 35 yards, 3.5, which is decent indoors, along a 13 and 2 touchdowns. But I'll tell you what, there was a couple out of those 10 attempts. There was a couple real hard playoff type rushes in there where, you know what, you have to set the tone in the running game sometimes, and particularly in the IFL, that's how it's designed. And Campbell was able to do that, and even Brandon Shepard was even able to chip in with 4 rushes for 22 yards as well. So, couple of great games, and that's what we were talking about. I believe you even picked the Sugar Skulls, so kudos to you for number one going out on the limb and picking them, but number two having the confidence in them that they would be able to go on the road and put up the kind of fight that they did.
It's always fun seeing a young team be scrappy and stay in there, because even if you lose those games, it's like, all right, we have so much upside for next season, and you can bet next time Sioux Falls and Tucson play each other, it's gonna be high emotion.
Right, no doubt about it. And one thing that I want to point out, I was just talking about having some dynamic receivers, and receivers contribute in the passing game. And speaking specifically about the Sugar Skulls, um, 5 different receivers catch footballs. Jeremy Harris, Shaq Harrington, and Rico Brown. They each have 2 touchdowns apiece. That's 6 touchdowns amongst the receiving core. And then, again, the Storm were able to get it done on the ground. They had 6 on the ground between Brown and Campbell, and that's kind of your difference with the one that Damian Ford added for them from a receiving standpoint. So the future is bright for the Sugar Skulls, and it'll be interesting to see how much of that they can really keep together. You do see more and more teams trying to keep teams together. I think it's hard to start from scratch every year. A little bit of a foundation and team unity goes a long way, especially when you're trying to build for the upcoming season again.
Yep, definitely. And I want to go to the CIF now, because there were a couple games that were less notable, but one that had very, very heavy playoff implications, and that was the Sioux City Bandits traveling to Omaha to take on the Beef. To get the other games out of the way first, the Amarillo Venom held off the Oklahoma Flying Aces 76-40, and the Duke City Gladiators defeated the Salina Liberty 43-26. But to that Bandits Beef game, the Beef ended up beating the Bandits 60-50. And it really did come down to the final quarter. The score, doesn't lie. What you're gonna see is that Sioux City committed a penalty. Omaha did not commit a penalty. Omaha went 67% on third down. Sioux City 46%. Fourth down, Omaha went 100%. Sioux City only 75%. So like big conversions. And it's actually more impressive when you look at the Beef winning it because they had the ball less. Sioux City had the ball 35 minutes 43 seconds, and the Beef had the ball 24 minutes 15 seconds. So two things there. One, it's impressive the team with the ball less time. One, second of all, why are we adding up to 59 minutes and 58 seconds here?
Usually in indoor, it seems like as long as the score is reasonably close, possession time and things of that nature are usually pretty close. So that's a substantial difference in possession time. It's just interesting how things worked out. The Beef generally play very, very well at this time of year, late in the year. They're a very, very tough team
Would
to.
you say they are in prime form?
I think they're playing as good as football as they have played all year. For them, number one. Another team who I think is at that level is Duke City.
Oh, definitely. I do not want to run into the Gladiators in the postseason in the CIF.
Yeah, they have one of the most well-rounded teams again in all three phases, with vets on the offensively, defensively, and they have special teams covered. They have special teams covered as far as the kicking game and the return game with Dello Davis. So they're just a dangerous team and. Um, like we said a couple weeks ago, or at least like I said, I felt like they were the team to beat, and we talked about how Amarillo had kind of shown a little spark there as well. So um, things are starting to situate themselves in all of the leagues, but the Beef always play well this time of year, and Gladiators have proven to do the same over the last couple of years. So it should be real interesting how things pan out.
Definitely. Definitely.
Even the Oklahoma Flying Aces started to put a few more points on the board late in the season, and it's never great to lose, but heck, I'd feel a lot better, if I put up 40 than if I just put up like 6 or 12. So
I think the fans feel much
kudos to
better
them.
too. The
Yeah,
fans,
they do.
because you want to keep them coming back for more.
And you want to give them some people to kind of know who to root for, so to speak, too. So it's good that those they were able to hang in there, like I said, and put up some points late in the season, and it'll be interesting to see what type of an off season they have, and it's going to be just interesting regardless. It looks like who is it going to be? Amarillo at Duke City and Omaha at
Salina.
Salina.
Yep.
Okay, so should be interesting.
Definitely.
I like Duke City, and I'm going to look for, although I think the Liberty bounce back and play a good football game, I think the Omaha Beef go in there and win on the road.
I I have the exact same picks as you, Coach. After the Beef win that game, you have momentum on your side, and momentum is something that is not easy to get in any sport, let alone indoor football. So I gotta go with the Beef. They are a late season team, so to speak. It's like the equivalent of playing good December football in the NFL is what Omaha's very good at doing in the CIF.
Yeah, most definitely. So, in case you're just joining us, we're in a real good indoor football discussion. I'm the coach. That's the kid. RJ, you're listening to the Indoor Football Experience, and you can catch us live afnn.net on the Alternative Football Network. And like I said, we're just here chilling on a Monday night. You can catch us every Monday night here. Talking indoor football again at afnn.net. So, one thing that we were talking about several good things off air, and we kind of started to save a lot of them. And you have had a hands-on experience being up close, and we were just kind of laughing and talking about some of the funnier things that you hear on the field out there. And it seems like this time of year, the trash talking game is at a all-time high level, and that's something some guys do better than others.
Oh, definitely. Some people are skilled trash talkers. It comes in different sports, different forms. To make an MMA analogy here, not everybody is going to be a Conor McGregor naturally throwing out jabs and witticisms that make everybody go, "Ooh, someone get some ice." That McGregor's known for. And other people kind of let their actions either talking for more football terms, not everybody's gonna be your Joey Porter mouthing off all the time, and then there's the toxic trash talk, which because Porter, as much as a crazy guy as he was, he had a method to his madness. Then there are some people who just like to run their mouths for the sake of running their mouth, So and being detrimental to the team. So that's a big distinction you got to make.
Yeah, you were talking about trash talk in general. There was a lot of trash talk Friday night in that danger Blizzard game. And hey, like I said, I've been out on the field in a lot of different capacities. If you want to just talk about trash talking, the number one capacity that I think I enjoyed trash talking the most, at least hearing it, was when I was officiating. It was always real good. It was the heat of the moment. And you were right there in the moment. So it made it, like a pretty good deal. Hey, these guys are going to talk a little trash to each other and then try and beat each other's brains in for a few downs. Sign me up. I'm right here, front row seat. So that would be the things that would just be kind of interesting. But, the thing that when we were watching the other night, I kept saying is you can't turn trash talk into penalties.
Oh,
And
definitely.
that's the one thing that I noticed, that you got to know when to say when, you got to know when to walk away, and a lot of things like that, to avoid putting your team in a bad situation.
Yeah, I imagine an optimal time to say a few words is if there's a big pileup.
Well, when I was officiating, kind of the general thought process was as long as you were walking away, you could pretty much say whatever you wanted to say. And obviously, there's lines to, not to cross and this and that. It's kind of like in MLB, as long as you're not looking right at the guy, you can say a lot, as long as you don't select those handful of special words. And as long as the players were moving about where they needed to be moving so we could keep the football game going, everything was cool.
Definitely. And I do think because, like you said, there are certain words you cannot use, that you get some very creative insults, And I think, honestly, this is a message to someone, not just one person, but the world in general. I've heard so many of the same insults that when someone comes up with something creative, I take it a little more seriously and have a, bit of respect for that person for going the extra mile to think of something clever to say.
Oh yeah, creativity gets high marks in my opinion too. So yeah, definitely creativity, definitely high marks, and it makes you feel like either the person is really good at what they're doing, or they're really have a tremendous dislike for you. So whichever it may be. But yeah, it's been kind of funny, and again, I hate to see it when it escalates to you know silly pushing and shoving, and weird looking stuff that's not football and not anything that anybody signed up for. But it's part of the game, and it's an interesting part. So keep your eye on that when you're watching games. And I think the key is who knows when to say when, and not push that limit to where they're putting their team in a bad situation by getting a flag.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Because like I said earlier, flags are so detrimental to the team because it has to make a coach crazy because it's such an avoidable thing. It's just keep your composure, like be quiet. Like I'll buy you a muzzle.
Yeah, you watch these coaches, and as soon as these camera people, they can't get the camera to these people fast enough. to show you just how the coach is just beside himself in some way, shape, or form. So it's like I said, it's just funny. It's something to watch, and some guys know when to really draw the line and how to push the right buttons, and it's just funny to watch, because there are guys definitely where that's part of their game, and then that's what they do, and a lot of times. Uh, there's coaches out there also too that they like that. They like to have guys who stir the pot a little bit and can be good hard-nosed football players.
Oh, definitely. I want to talk about the National Arena League now.
Yeah.
A couple good games this past week. One was tight, and the other was an offensive showcase. The close game was between the Columbus Lions and Massachusetts Pirates in the DCU Center in Worcester. The hometown Pirates were able to fend off the Lions 59-50, and then you had the Sharks absolutely give a butt whooping to the New York Streets, who up until that game were the only team to hand the Sharks loss in the season, coming in week 1 when EJ Nemeth was still quarterback in the team. In Jacksonville, it was without Jonathan Bain. He was on a short-term IR. And, here comes Mike Faithful making his second start in National Arena League history. And I'm thinking, all right, let's see what this guy can do. Through the beginning of the game, it's going back and forth. But then the New York defense slips up a little bit, and Faithful unloads. And look, he's throwing bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb. And you're just sitting back I'm like, okay, is this either because of how great he is, or is it the defense having holes? And I'm like, it's probably a combination of both. But Coach, guess how many touchdowns Faithful threw by the end of the night?
7 or 8.
9. That ties the National Arena League record and is the second most in Sharks history, only to Tommy Grady's 10.
Yeah, that's a nice night.
Yeah, the final score was Sharks 83, Streets 51. And the thing with New York Streets, definitely, I've said it a couple times in a row now, and it's a lot easier said than done. I'm not trying to pick on them. I'm just saying where I could see some improvement is in that secondary and again on the offensive line, because David Legree has a very strong arm. If he has a time to sling a ball in there, he's so dangerous, and that's the key thing. He needs more time sometimes.
Yeah, like I said, you've got me watching a lot more National Arena League action this year, and competition's been good. We've talked about all the teams. I've always been somewhat of a Jacksonville fan, and so they're doing things at a high level again. But I love the fact that the Jacksonville Sharks, they're back where they need to be, but. Massachusetts has been highly competitive. New York Streets. I see Juvie Roberts is watching us live on Facebook. And commenting on the New York Streets. So they've been doing their thing and improving. They got off to a fast start, had a little slowdown in the action when the league kind of catches up to you a little bit, but they've been bouncing. They've been bouncing back and. Been one of the better teams in this league. So less is more. I know a lot of the teams are talking about expanding and adding teams in big numbers, but hopefully that's not the case. They can continue to incrementally grow at a small rate and keep a lot of parity in the leagues. I think that's what really keeps the leagues together, no matter whether it's IFL, National Arena League, or the Champions Indoor Football League.
Definitely. And then there's some coaching news. So the Orlando Predators have brought in a new offensive coordinator. They need a little bit of support there, and they brought in PJ Jack, who was the head coach of the Manatee Neptunes of the A-League this past season. But, Coach, you got to coach the man. What's he like as a player?
A good competitive player, a person who knows the game, is a person who is going to make a good coach. And so PJ ought to really do well. And, a lot of the guys that I see having success, they played for good coaches went during their playing career, and they carry over a lot of those schemes. I mean, that's a lot of what we did here, and that's a lot of what we're in the process of doing now. So I think you'll have a lot of success and have a good time there.
Definitely. I love seeing the Predators, you know, get back to the pace of things because it's been a while since they were in competition, because they left the AFL, and they're back with the rivalry with the Sharks, and it's fun to see that rivalry come back. I've blushed about it on a few shows beforehand, but it's the first it's the first big rivalry the NAL has had because the NAL needs some time to fester some in-house rivalries, and a couple outside rivalries coming to your turf are good for league popularity, and I guess the forum's talking even more than normal. And Lord knows the forums love to talk.
Well, yeah, I don't mess with forums too much anymore. I used to over the years, but I'd rather hop on here on a show like this with you and just give my own opinion. But to add on to what you're really talking about is, again, like we've really said, the teams are doing what they need to do to stay competitive. And one thing that I think would be something that would bode the National Arena League well is if they don't have just their teams in Florida that are competitive, they have the whole East Coast market for the most part. So I would love to see some competition from, Massachusetts all the way down through New York, Columbus, Georgia, and all the way into Florida. So I think that's the thing that would make the most sense for that league. So again, it's good that they're not too top heavy in Florida right now, and hopefully Massachusetts is the team that I really want to keep my eye on in the offseason. They seem to be a team in that league that likes to make big moves. And I think offensively, this is turning into exactly what its original founders and the people that are involved with the league right now wanted it to be a high scoring offensive league, something that was very competitive to arena football back in the day. And I think that they're slowly but surely getting there.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a fun thing for me to watch and go into the games. I didn't say this last show. I meant to. This is an example of why the game is so fun, but also a little bit precarious if you're not paying attention. So a couple weeks ago in Westchester, there was a play where I forget who it was, someone got slammed over the boards, and some lady wasn't quite prepared for it. She was hit. A guy spilled his beer. Everyone was okay. I think she just had the wind knocked out of her for a second. But I'm like, oh man, that was crazy. I'm like, yep. And they say this in the NFL a lot, and it's a good motto considering human trafficking is not a good thing. They say you can keep the ball, but you cannot keep the player. Now, personally, I agree with that statement. If you want to, get an autograph from the player, do that after the game.
Man, I'll tell you what, I saw some plays where some players flew into the stands in that Nebraska Danger, Green Bay Blizzard game. And while it is exciting and this and that, I've also know of situations personally where there's been injuries and this and that. And it's kind of like the foul ball thing in baseball,
Oh yeah, definitely.
stretching the fences down and this and that. So the thing that's really crazy is those are high dollar seats and this and that. And I know a lot of arenas don't want to sell those first couple seats and this and that.
Yeah, for those reasons. Uh, I think last week as well there was, I forget who it was. I believe it was a Columbus Destroyers player who went about 3 or 4 rows into the crowd to make a catch. I'm like, all right, I get dedication to your craft, but dang,
Yeah, so
you just
it's
be careful.
oh, no doubt, and it can be dangerous. But the thing was in the Green Bay Danger game, they have the benches at the end of the arena and not on the side, so the players were going into player areas. And if that's where you have to go, I guess that's the safest, one of the safest areas. Again, you're listening to the coach, and that's the kid on the other line. Make sure that you stay tuned for our Player of the Week picks. Although we had a few less games to really deal with and select from, some very good performances from some players in all the leagues this past week. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Make sure that again, you can listen live at afnn.net. You can click the play button and you can join the indoor football experience with the coach and the kid. You can join us live, and we're on the Alternative Football Network. So we appreciate everybody that's popping in on that Facebook Live right now. It's funny. Yes, you can only hear me, and if RJ has one up, you can only hear him. So it is what it is. We appreciate you supporting no matter what. So, anything going on, and you touched on the American Arena League a little bit. So why don't you catch everybody up?
Yep. Well, Saturday is the championship game. The Carolina Energy are traveling to Wheeling, West Virginia to take on the Rough Riders at Wesco Bank Arena. Now, personally, there's this great video by Rough Riders owner Greg Fernario where he cut something similar to a wrestling promo, and I gotta say, Fernario really was calm and calculated with it. It was really amusing. I really insist to give it a look. But also, Irvin Bryson, the Energy head coach, said, "Bring your cowbells and skirts." So those are some fighting words. And I found something out that I didn't know about Coach Bryson. He has a history of being a coach in the West Virginia market. When the Ohio Valley Greyhounds were a team way back when, he was a head coach for them in 2007. And the Rough Riders are reminding you of this because, well, let's just say he's not as furnished. He went 2-13, you know. And the AAL fans are very vocal. They definitely let you know how they feel. So the board, I don't always comment on the forums. I just like see what's going on, and it's very entertaining. Some people are for the Rough Riders like, okay, who's gonna stop Noel Devine? I'm like, it's just fun to watch this because, us, first of all, something I do want to bring up that the AAL has done really well is that they renamed the championship trophy the Bowman Cup after the late co-founder of the league, Jack Bowman. I think that was a real classy move on their part. I was pushing for it to be called Bowman Bull, but that didn't quite catch on. But Bowman Cup is very honorable legacy to have for the guy. And I think that's going to be a really good game. It's a battle of undefeated teams in the championship game. And, Fornario said this in his promo, as I'm going to call it, what other league has that? And he's right. No other league has that right now. So, it's definitely going to be a fun game. I can only imagine how packed out, the arena is going to be in Wheeling. Wesco Bank is going to be crazy. And I really hope everybody has a good time. I know I'm going to be watching it and having a good time with it. And, if you haven't watched any AAL this year, this is probably the game you should watch. It's championship football game. Why not watch it?
I agree with you there. This is a league that I really haven't followed too much as far as what's going on the field, to be quite frank with you, particularly since the beginning of the season. A lot of the forum drama is great entertainment. I'm just not as into as much of that as I used to be. So I think you're 100% right. This is the game to watch if you want to know what's going on in the American Arena League, and it's all going to take place, like you said, in the West Banco Arena in Wheeling, West Virginia. Championship date's going to be June 29th, and these are the two teams that everybody's been talking about so much. So why not let them settle it on the field for a championship, and then it'll be really interesting to see where this league goes. A lot of rumors out there right now. I think after this game, the off season for the American Arena League will get started quickly.
Definitely. Definitely. It's going to be interesting to see what that league does in the off season.
They would do themselves well if they could settle on maybe a couple divisions regionally. Whether it's an Eastern Division, Midwest Division, what have you. But sometimes these leagues, they get a couple established teams and then just take on anything. And I think that's kind of what happened to this league a little bit. Some of the teams weren't ready for prime time, so to speak, and that ultimately hurt the league. So we'll see where this league goes. After this championship game, it should be interesting. The off season in general is something that I really enjoy. I think it's a great time for teams to take advantage of the lead time that they have to really put things in place for the following season.
Definitely. And Coach, I think it's time for that part of the show where we say our players of the week. I picked mine, Coach. Who do you got for yours?
Oh man, you're gonna have to go first. I'm still deciding. I was looking at this American Arena League schedule, and I'm just kind of looking at the teams that kind of fell through with the New England Bobcats, the Reading Raptors. Uh, Even I see a game late in the season where the Indianapolis Enforcers 1-0. I mean that kind of thing is tough.
Definitely. And, for my player of the week, as soon as I saw the game, I knew it was going to be this one man. Mike Faithful. I'm sorry, you cannot deny 9 touchdowns and 0 interceptions to a man. Uh, you know, when you put up over 80 points, which is a franchise record for the Sharks, don't get me wrong. The defense did an amazing job. Brandon Burt had an amazing kicking game. But I haven't seen such a dominant performance by a quarterback in the National Arena League in my years watching it. And it's been 3 years now, so I've seen a lot of different quarterbacks step on the field and do impressive things, but that's gotta be a performance for the ages.
Yeah, I agree with you. You put up 9 touchdowns, no matter how you do it. I think you definitely warrant being player of the week. My player of the week is going to be Tommy Armstrong, leading the Nebraska Danger on the road in a tough road playoff game. He accounted for 5 touchdowns, 1 in the air. Again, his 4 on the ground. He set the tone with a rushing touchdown and the initial scoring drive of the game for the Danger. And again, like I said, I really thought that set the tone between he and Devontae Sapp Lynch, who was able to help out with 81 yards and 2 touchdowns himself. But my player of the week is going to go to the Nebraska Danger quarterback, Tommy Armstrong.
And I just realized, Coach, that is Armstrong's second time getting a nod from us. Last week I was giving it to him for the clutch performance he had. You're giving him the nod this week. I think Armstrong's looking pretty clutch and is heating up right now is what we're figuring out.
Yeah, the thing about it was kind of like you said, when I watched that game from start to finish, and I really think about it, that game was Tommy Armstrong's game. They got a 40-plus yard kickoff return right out the gates, and then he took over with a big 4th down run for a score, I believe, a 4-yard score, and it set the tone. And a lot of times the tone and momentum can be in your favor, and I think at the end of the day, Nebraska had most of the momentum throughout that game, and they were able to weather any storms that Green Bay was really able to throw at them. So again, a good football game. Those are the best kind, a close football game in the playoffs, and the IFL delivered. And like I said, all the leagues delivered with good football games. this past weekend, and that's the way it is coming down the stretch. And that's what we're doing. We're coming down the stretch here. RJ, why don't you let everybody know where they can keep up with you during the week and what you might have planned for this particular weekend, if anything, since the games are winding down.
Well, you can find me on Facebook at the name RJ Ciancio. Ciancio spelled Cian as in Nancy, CIO. You can follow me on my Instagram page, RJ_Ciancio, or on my Twitter at CiancioRJ. By the way, I will be at the Westchester County Center for the New York Streets Jacksonville Shark game. So if you're going to be there, message me. Maybe we can meet up. And I'm going to be doing some post-game interviews, getting some of those for you, Coach. But, where can we find you on social media?
Hey, that sounds like a good time. So make sure if you are out, you reach out and check in with RJ and let him know that you're a fan and you've been listening to the Indoor Football Experience. RJ, you can catch me the normal places. I'll be putting some things out there on Facebook, and you can find me there at Lynn, Lin, first name, last name, Hart, Hart Jr. You can also find me on Twitter, and I'm on Twitter at lowercase the coach 28. You can also find me on Instagram as well, all lowercase the underscore coach 28. So we really appreciate everybody that's been listening, not only in the areas that we're from, but worldwide, the messages that we've been getting and the people that like to interact and talk indoor football during the course of the week. So, like I said, we're getting into the off season, and we will still, regardless of games, with the amount of indoor football that's out there, we'll have a lot to talk about this summer.
Definitely. And a big thank you to our producer, Harry Bob, for helping us with all this. We couldn't be doing this show without him, so major thank you to you, Harry.
No doubt. And that's the kid. So for the kid, I'm the coach. We're going to wrap up this indoor football experience here on a Monday night. You can catch us here every Monday night, the indoor football experience with the coach and the kid, 8:15 Central Standard Time. So like the kid said, for our awesome producer, Harry Bob, that's the kid. I'm the coach. We'll catch you next week. Peace.